So it's October 2024, and lots of folks are saying Apple will be holding an event this month to release new M4 based Macs and perhaps a couple of iPads. So I've been trawling through the rumours and I have a few thoughts on what we might see. But first of all, expect iterations rather than revelations. The pace of change that happened when Apple transitioned to its own silicon, well, that's inevitably slowed down. So these events are perhaps a little less exciting than they used to be. Personally, I'd like to see a return to live events, but that's probably not going to happen. And we'll probably get the same collection of wild transitions and presenters doing that spear hands thing. And they'll probably keep us waiting for the new Macs whilst they announce new iPads. Most likely a new iPad mini with the same design, perhaps some new colours, and hopefully a fix to that jelly scroll issue when you use it in portrait mode. iPad mini has traditionally had a better spec than the base iPad. So will Apple be bringing Apple Intelligence to the mini? In order to do that, it will need at least an A17 Pro chip or any of the M chips. And personally, I see it coming with an A18 variant. And some folks are saying that it'll get Pencil Pro support. I'm not so sure about that. And for those hoping for a 120Hz display, I think you'll be disappointed because I can't see Apple giving the Mini that upgrade when the Air doesn't have it yet. Now, it is possible that the base iPad 10 is going to get a new generation with a faster chip. Will this iPad support Apple Intelligence? Again, that would mean most likely an A18 chip. And if the base iPad gets that, then the Mini would need to get an A18 Pro or even an M1. And the standard iPad would also need to have more than the current 4GB of RAM. And that might conflict with the base iPad's key advantage. And that's its price. You can now get these at a shade over £300 or $300, and that's a bargain. Let's talk about Mac. I'm really interested to see the new M4 Pro and Max chips. And typically I replace my laptop every 3 years or so, so this M1 Max here is coming up 3 years old, and normally I'd be ready to change. But this laptop still feels great to use and it's got performance to spare, and the battery still has 89% of its maximum capacity. Apple did such a great job with these M1 machines that they kind of shot themselves in the foot a bit when it comes to upgrades. So I'm guessing many people will stick with what they have for a bit longer, particularly as we're not expecting any design changes for the 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pro. Now, it would be nice to see the tandem OLED display from the iPad Pro make an appearance, along with Face ID and the end of the notch, but we'll probably have to wait longer for that. So expect the same base MacBook Pro with 2 USB 4 ports, but now having an M4 chip. Then the model that has 3 Thunderbolt 4 ports, that will get the new M4 Pro and Max options, and we'll talk about these chips in a moment. Some rumours are also suggesting that the iMac here will be updated with the M4 chip. Apple previously skipped the M2 generation, and I was expecting them to skip M4 as well, bringing the new iMacs with the M5 chip, at the same time as bringing a larger iMac with a larger display. But we've learned by now that you can't rely on what Apple has done in the past to predict the future. So an M4 iMac would be very welcome. The M4 is an immensely capable chip, and we've seen glimpses of its potential performance on the iPad Pro, though of course this is hampered by iPadOS. But an M4 iMac would be a formidable machine for creative professionals working in photography and graphic design, not to mention many other disciplines. The 4.5K display is lovely, and the form factor of the iMac is a great addition to any desk. And as I've said before, the iMac always seems to punch above its weight and is a computer that is greater than the sum of its parts. There is a possibility too that Apple will finally update the peripherals to USB-C from Lightning, but don't be surprised if that doesn't happen. The Mac Mini is also due for an upgrade, presumably with both M4 and M4 Pro options. And the biggest changes here are a rumoured redesign to a much smaller chassis, perhaps not much bigger than an Apple TV, and a move to USB-C only ports. 5 of them. Perhaps, like its big brother, the Mac Studio, 2 of these ports will be front-facing. On the standard M4 model, I'd expect 2 of the ports to be USB 4 and 3 to be USB 3.2. And then on the M4 Pro model, 4 Thunderbolt 4 ports and 1 USB 3.2. If this is the case, I wonder if the HDMI port will be removed and replaced, perhaps initially with a USB-C to HDMI dongle in the box. That wouldn't surprise me, and it wouldn't surprise me if the dongle isn't in the box either. And what about the Ethernet port? Will that be sticking around? One thing it seems that won't be staying is the USB-A ports, and I think that's a real shame on a desktop computer. It's one thing to shrink a computer down to make it smaller, but if that then necessitates the use of dongles and adapters, it makes for a more cluttered experience. I'm also curious to see if Apple manages to keep the power supply internal, or will we end up with a separate power brick? Okay, let's talk about M4. Now, as standard, it has 4 performance cores and 6 efficiency cores. Previous M chips had 4 of each, so this will provide a noticeable step up for power efficiency and multi-threaded performance. And the cores themselves offer a substantial generational improvement over M3. Single core performance is around 20% improved in synthetic benchmarks, and multi-threaded performance offers a similar improvement. Now, in the iPad Pro, if you choose a model with less than 1 terabyte of storage, you get a binned version of the M4 chip and you lose a performance core. But even this version is offering around 10% multi-threaded performance improvement over M3. Again, these are synthetic benchmarks and the real-world results will be variable, but overall, it is a very good generational improvement. Whether Apple will use the same type of binning in the Mac lineup remains to be seen. The M4 chip also has an improved neural engine, or NPU, over the M3 chip. It's not double the performance that some people say. That's all down to mixing the published TOPS scores for the 2 chips, which are based on integer calculations for M4 and floating point for M3, if I remember correctly. But again, the NPU is a good generational improvement, and that's going to be important given that the new Apple Intelligence functionality is going to be rolling out over the coming year. GPU performance is also improved with M4, and that offers around 12% more raw compute performance compared to M3. Again, your mileage in real-world usage will vary, but it is a solid step up, and it's an unbelievably capable graphics chip with ray tracing support. And it's offering similar performance in Apple's Metal framework to an AMD Radeon Pro 5500 XT. And that's not bad for an onboard laptop chip. What about base memory? Apple has been doggedly sticking to 8GB for far too long, but M4 should see this finally change. When the base iPad Pro was torn down, it was noted that it actually appears to have 2 6GB memory modules, which means that Apple is somehow artificially limiting the memory to 8GB in the base iPad Pro. Bit of a douche move, but it does perhaps indicate a new minimum on that binned M4 chip of 12GB of RAM. And personally, I think that might apply to the base M4 MacBook Air that's likely to be released in 2025. A base model with 12GB would be a decent step up from 8. And it's possible we could see that on the entry-level Mac Mini too. But when it comes to the M4 MacBook Pro, I expect the base configuration to be 16GB. Now, obviously, we've seen M4 in the real world, albeit on iPadOS, not macOS, but details of the Pro and Max chips are less clear. But there are some rumours and predictions. With M4 Pro, I'd expect to see 2 additional performance cores over M4. Perhaps a binned version with 5 performance cores and 6 then as standard. And that would offer around 25 to 30% multi-threaded performance uplift over the standard M4 chip. Expectations are that the graphics chip will be 14 cores on the binned version and 18 as standard. Whereas the base M4, that's got 10 graphics cores. So you can see that's going to be a big improvement. And you can also expect to see a small memory bandwidth uplift over M4. The base memory configuration for M4 Pro will probably remain at 18GB. Now, what about M4 Max? Many people are expecting a 14 or 16 core CPU, with those additional cores again being performance cores. So in a binned configuration, it would offer the same CPU performance as M4 Pro, with then that unbinned full-fat version offering a decent uplift in multi-threaded performance. But of course, it could be an even bigger jump in core numbers. GPU options will likely be 30 cores or 40 cores. And with base memory at 32GB and more bandwidth again over M4 Pro, it's going to be an astonishing amount of performance in a laptop. So that's my roundup of the rumours and some of my own thoughts on what we might expect. But please pop some predictions of your own in the comments section. It's always fun to see if we guessed anything right. What does Apple need to do to make you upgrade or buy into the M4 generation of Macs? Oh, and let me know if you'd be interested in seeing a live stream after the Apple event. We haven't done that for a while. I look forward to reading your comments, so thanks as always for supporting the channel. See you again soon for some more geekery.